Good morning. I'm Gary DeWaal, and this is Bridging the Week for April 23rd to 27th, and today is April 30th, 2018. J. Christopher Giancarlo, chairman of the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, proposed reforms to enhance swaps trading and reporting, the central clearing of swaps, swaps deal as capital, and persons subject to mandatory clearing and margin requirements. He said that implementing trading reforms he recommends would justify expanding the number of swaps that should be required to trade on swap execution facilities. Unrelatedly, Andre Flotron was acquitted of conspiracy to defraud in connection with allegations that he engaged in spoofing-type futures trading activity from 2008 to 2013. Later this week will begin the 40th annual FIA Law and Compliance Seminar in Washington, D.C., and I will be moderating a panel with great participants on cryptocurrency regulation. So I can hurry to Washington for the FIA conference and my panel. Let's get started. J. Christopher Giancarlo, chairman of the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, issued a white paper calling for the CFTC to expand the way swaps that could be traded on swap execution facilities consistent with congressional intent, and once done, mandating that all swaps that must be cleared must also be traded on a CEF. In a wide-ranging report entitled Swaps Regulation Version 2.0, Mr. Giancarlo also called for further study to ensure the safety and soundness of clearinghouses and how the CFTC and Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation might better coordinate the resolution of a collapsed systematically important clearinghouse, improve real-time reporting of swaps trades by calibrating requirements to the nature of the relevant products, entities, markets, and asset classes, enhance regulators' capability to approve and monitor internal models for capital computations that more effectively measure the risks of swaps position by considering the benefits of offsetting positions as well as the risk mitigation of potential margin, and potentially accept smaller financial end users from obligations to clear swaps and post margin on uncleared swaps. Mr. Giancarlo indicated that consistent with expanding the way swaps should be executed on CEFs, the CFTC should make the mandatory CEF execution requirement for a swap contemporaneous with the determination that the swap must be centrally cleared. According to Mr. Giancarlo, this would bring, quote, daylight to the marketplace, subjecting a much broader range to swaps products to separate record keeping and regulatory supervision and oversight, end of quote. Mr. Giancarlo also suggested that, in the future, swaps reporting might be enhanced through application of distributed ledger technology, and that the CFTC should explore this possibility with other regulators. Although Mr. Giancarlo provided no timetable to implement his recommendations, he indicated, quote, we will move forward in regular order, and in good order, we will get this done, end of quote. Andre Flotron, the former UBS trader, who last year was indicted for conspiracy to defraud in connection with purported spoofing-type trading activity involving precious metal futures contracts listed on the Commodity Exchange, Inc., was found not guilty by a jury hearing his case in Connecticut. Mr. Flotron, who allegedly engaged in the conduct that was subject to indictment from July 2008 to at least November 2013, most recently resided in Switzerland. He was arrested and criminally charged in a federal court in Connecticut after he came to the United States to visit his girlfriend in September 2017. Subsequently, the Department of Justice attempted to dismiss its own case against Mr. Flotron in Connecticut and to file it in Illinois to include other charges. The court held that the Department of Justice motion would unfairly deprive Mr. Flotron of a speedy trial and was in bad faith. According to the court, quote, the government's real wish in prevailing on the motion is to decorate its broad conspiracy charges with baubles of substantive charges that serve little or no function other than to run up defendant's sentencing exposure beyond the 25 years imprisonment he already faces if convicted on the conspiracy charges alone, end of quote. Mr. Flotron remains the defendant in an enforcement action by the Commodity Futures Trading Commission related to the same alleged trading conduct filed in January 2018. Unrelatedly, Mark Johnson, the HSBC banker, Bank PLC's former head of foreign exchange cash trading was sentenced to 24 months imprisonment and subject to other penalties following his conviction for front-running a customer's trading British pounds trade in November and December 2011. Mr. Johnson was criminally charged for his conduct by the U.S. Attorney's Office in Brooklyn, New York in July 2016 and was found guilty of 8 counts of wire fraud by a federal jury in October 2017. Well, that's it for this week's edition of Bridging the Week. As always, there is more information in each article and more articles on the article version of Bridging the Week on the website. Check it out. I'm Gary DeWaal. Have a great week. See you in Washington, D.C. And until the next edition of Bridging the Week, ciao.